Hey everybody, welcome to another instalment of Board Games Hitting My Table. So this is a series of videos where I talk about all the board games that I played previously or already have in my collection, and I'll just show you what I've been hitting my table to see what's been sticking around and has that staying power. And I'll talk about my thoughts about them and how those particular games went. So before I get into these games, I just want to give a shout out to kienda.co.uk, who are my go-to online retailer in the UK, and if you check out the show notes, I'll give you a little discount code. So let's get into the games themselves. So first off, I've been playing more Blitzkrieg, and I've actually played the Nippon version, which is the more advanced version of the game, where you are choosing to basically influence these different theatres of war by placing these tiles down, drawing from a bag, and then you're kind of sliding that up and down depending on how powerful that particular artifact was. The Nippon version is quite interesting because it has this kind of cascading effect where if you really trounce your opponent in a particular battle, then it will affect the next battle and give them kind of a poor starting point. It's a really smooth game. A different kind of pacing for Paolo Mori, and it seems like he's going to stick to this recipe for his newer game, Caesar, which I, of course, haven't played yet. I would say that I'm slightly underwhelmed by that Nippon version. I thought it was going to be a bit more interesting than it was in practice, and I think I might even just prefer the pure base game. But still, a really good two-player game. I do recommend it quite strongly. And yeah, it's a lot of fun, a lot of back and forth. And if you like that kind of push your luck or the kind of the tug of war style system, then Blitzkrieg is a strong example of that. I've also been playing in the Hall of the Mountain King. So I played a two-player game of this. And I will say this game just works so well. I mean, I hadn't played it in quite a while, and I really didn't have to do much work in terms of learning the rules again, because it is broken down into quite easily dissectable segments. This is a game where you are kind of burrowing into this mountain by placing these polyomino tiles, and then you're discovering these statues and then trying to drag them into the centre of the mountain to score more victory points. My favourite thing about this game is the resource management as you build this tower of these trolls, and then when you place a new one, all the resources cascade from top to bottom, filling up all these cards. So you've got to be very careful to use them all these resources before you place a new one, because the other ones will go to waste. Kind of a medium weight Euro that's, again, really accessible, a lot of fun. I do think there's a bit of a ceiling on how many times you can play this one. I don't know if there is expansion content for it. I think there might be a mini expansion. But I think, despite really enjoying this one, I think maybe my time has come to an end with in the Hall of the Mountain King. Really enjoyed the experience and would still recommend it. But yeah, I think I've seen everything it has to offer, but still really enjoyed my play. And I know it went down really well with my opponent as well. I've also been playing Monstrosity. So this is a drawing party game, as you are trying to draw these different weird animals, or monsters, sorry, from this card here. And basically there's going to be somebody who's going to have 20 seconds to look at this creature, and then they're going to explain it to all the other players, and they're going to try and draw it and replicate it to the best of their ability. A lot of fun, this one, and it is certainly it's a change for like games like Telestrations, which is kind of our go-to drawing game. So it's nice to just try something a bit different and keep both the games fresh, rather than kind of fatiguing ourselves on them. I will say that when you're playing this game with pure adults, it does become a little bit easy, and you can remember things quite specifically. So I would suggest playing some variants and making it harder for yourself. Like we played a version where the person in the hot seat who's seen the monster can only answer questions rather than give a description, which just made it a little bit more difficult and just added more scope for people to get it wrong, which is what you want with a game like this. But still, a lot of fun. I've also been playing Allegory. So this is a game I reviewed probably a month or two ago. A relatively unknown game that came out this year, actually. A bidding style game as you're trying to claim these cards to score points, using that Rhinokinesia system where out of all the different colours, only your lowest one is going to score. However, when you claim a card with these bidding tokens, you're placing your bid on the other tokens and distributing them out, meaning that when another player takes those cards, they're getting all the tokens on them as well, which is something I hadn't seen before. I'm kind of calling on this one a little bit because I think the scoring does feel a bit too tight and you can't really get much scoring going. There's a lot of negative scoring cards, which can feel a bit paralysing at times, and you don't really want to take anything. And that was kind of the lasting impression I had, was there's so many negative cards, and also there's quite a strong incentive to kind of race towards the finish and catch your opponents off guard by collecting as many cards as you can, because as soon as that 10th card is played and claimed, then it basically ends the game. So I tend to not like that kind of that racing factor, which is a good strategy to go for. It kind of leaves me a little bit underwhelmed. But it's fine, it's good, but I don't think it's as good as a lot of other bidding games out there. You know, I'd much sooner play something like For Sale or something like High Society, but it's fine, and I did somewhat enjoy it. Also been playing more Dice Charmers. So this is the roll and write version of Rajas of the Ganges, and I think I was getting slightly better at this one because I think I did better than I have before. At least got it fulfilled quicker than I had before, because this one actually keeps that same scoring mechanism from the board game where you're trying to overlap your victory points and your coins. And this one you're trying to build these routes, trying to get through these different buildings and get points that way. Collecting resources and selling them. Such a smooth combo-rific game. What a game this is. One of the best roll and write games that I've played, maybe even my favourite one that I have played. I'll have to think about that, but loving it. Definitely a strong recommendation for me. And yeah, going from strength to strength. That is Rajas of the Ganges, the Dice Charmers. It wouldn't be an edition of What's Been Hitting My Table without Mandala. So I always try to get a game of Mandala in when I am playing with just 2 players. So this one is certainly one of my favourite games so far this year. I know it wasn't from this year, I think it's from a couple of years ago, but yeah, definitely been a big hit for me. And I will say, I'm not gloating, but I got an undefeated record on this one, but I came very close to losing my most recent game, but just scraped it at the end. What a game this one is you're trying to bid for these cards in the centre, and when you claim them, they're going on these different spots, which means that going from left to right, the further right cards are going to be worth more points than the ones further left, which can be very different to what your opponent is scoring. One of the best 2-player games I've made. Again, if you watch my content, you probably know all I do is kind of gush over this game. It's so good, and you know, repeated plays are not changing that at all. So that is Mandala, still utterly fantastic. Also been playing Garam. Garam, this one is really been a sleeper hit for me. I think I initially rated this one a 6.5, but I think this one, I'm quite confident I'm going to give this one my shield of quality. It's knocking it up to a 7. This one is a tile placement game as you're trying to place these different tiles on these different kind of bowls on the board and try to build these lines and columns of your particular colour, and then claiming these particular spots and trying to get as many as you can in those rows, because you're going to get points accordingly. And you've got a big worker as well, which you can take a bit of a gamble on and try to get loads of points, because you get double the points if you do have that big worker down. And I like the way that once you get those down, you have this kind of element of, am I going to get it down early to make sure I secure my spot but risk other people taking it for me? Or am I going to leave it to the end where potentially I'm risking other people snatching that spot as well? So this is a brilliant game. It's got no rules overhead whatsoever, and always been a hit whenever I played it. And I think it's certainly an unsung gem. So if you like a clean, almost abstract tile placement game when you're trying to match colours up, this one is one of the best. Such a good game. That is Garam, true hidden gem. Also been playing a 3-player game of Q-Birds. So Q-Birds I don't actually played up to 2 players up until this most recent play. And this is another game that's getting better and better for me. As you are trying to collect these different birds, and you're going to have a hand of cards, and you're going to be placing them kind of on these rows and collecting all the ones in between them that aren't matching that bird. And then you're going to be trying to get sets of these birds by getting, I think it's 7 individual birds or 2 sets of 3 birds. And it is such a cool game of give and take. You've got to be very careful about which ones you play and leave out there for your opponents to grab, but still kind of chaining actions together and managing your hand accordingly so that you can get the cards that you particularly need. And as the game goes on, you just get tunnel vision on particular birds, which is always cool. So yeah, I really like this one. It has some cool twists on it as well, where if you want to play cards of a certain type, you have to play them all, which can be quite a paralysing decision. So yeah, loving this one. And again, creeping up, that is Q-Birds, a really underrated filler game. And speaking of underrated filler games, this is Capo. I played another 3-player game of this one, which is actually I think it's actually the first time I played this 3-player. So I played it 2 and 4. I think I prefer 2 to 4, but I think 3 for me is the sweet spot for this one. So this is a very introductory memory style game as you're trying to score as few points as you can by having particular cards out in front of you, and you are either kind of swapping them with other players, you are You can peek at them so you know which ones to take, and you're drawing off a deck and swapping them in and out. So easy, but it does have this push your luck where if you think you're satisfied with the points you have, you can call Capo, and which will mean that everybody gets one round, and then whoever's got the fewest points is, or if you've called Capo and you've got the fewest points, you don't score anything, but everybody else will score their full value of points. But if you do call Capo and you don't have the least, you score an additional 10 points, which is not a good thing. Went down wonderfully at 3 players. Again, I think that is the sweet spot for me. And when I played this first, I was quite impressed. Second time, I was a bit lukewarm. Third time, I've kind of been reaffirmed that it is a good little game. That is Capo, the Deluxe Edition. Also, I've been playing, after a long time, Glenmore 2 Chronicles. So I played a 2-player game of this, purely vanilla, so none of the Chronicles whatsoever. And my God, is this game fantastic. Even better than I remembered it, and I remembered it being amazing. So this is a tile placement game by Matthias Kramer. And you're using this kind of time track and collecting tiles on the way and adding them to your little more here. And you're collecting resources and triggering things when you place tiles. You're moving your little Scotsman around. And it is such a cool puzzle. And I loved the fact in this game that we played, we went for completely different strategies. I went for a very much end game style game and trying to build up my little network, and my opponent went for a bigger kind of more, and kind of got a lot of points during the game rather than at the end of the game or at the scoring phases. But I love the fact that you are incentivized to be as concise as possible, because every tile that your opponent has more than you at the end is going to cost them 3 points. And I really did use that to my advantage, and I think won by a single point, or it might have even been a tie. So completely different routes, and ended up on exactly the same point, which is so fascinating, and it just shows how well balanced Glenmore 2 is. I think one of the best tile placement games out there, utterly phenomenal. That is Glenmore 2 Chronicles. I've also been playing a few additional games, so I'm just going to show some pictures here. So we've got Lost Ruins of Arnak. I've got a 3-player game of this played. Still a solid kind of medium light style game that uses deck building and worker placement together. So I played, I think, the more advanced side of the board, and that was enjoyable. It doesn't rock my world, but I do think it's a strong recommendation, and I can certainly see why it's so popular. Really like that one. Also been playing Cash and Guns, so that more party vibe. I think we played a 5-player game or even a 6-player game. This one is it's basically Reservoir Dogs, the board game. As you're pointing guns at each other, you can either use like a blank or you can shoot a bullet. You have a certain amount of lives. If you get shot, you kind of get out of the loot, and then you can't take cards from the middle. And it works pretty good. It's got that real novelty factor and that physicality to a party game that does make people remember it. So I think it's a good one. I haven't played it for some time, but it's still pretty solid for a party game. Also been playing Saboteur. I think we played a 6-player game of this, as you're basically trying to connect these tunnels to these different exits, and then there's going to be a saboteur who's trying to obviously sabotage that and make the tunnels go for different directions. I think that every game kind of plays out the same with this one. Has some horrible take that, you're just giving cards out to other players, meaning they can't do anything, which I find not fun at all. But yeah, don't like this one, but I suppose it's different for a party game playing at 6 players. And I think finally we played Subterra, which is a cooperative game based on mining. I suppose you're trapped in a mine, and then you're working together trying to fight your way through this mine, discovering tiles. It's got that kind of pandemic system, as you have a certain amount of actions. You can go into new tiles blindly, you can peek, you can move, you can sprint, all this kind of standard stuff that pretty much 100 different cooperative games use. I think this game is far too long. I think there's no strategy at all, as you're just basically peeking into different tiles and just going through the motions trying to find the exit. Not for me, this one. I think it's pretty lackluster, and there's better co-op games out there. But I don't know, maybe other people enjoy it. So that concludes my thoughts and the games that I've been playing during the second half of November 2021. So I think it just shows what games are hitting the table and what has the staying power. So if you have enjoyed the video, please hit like and subscribe to the channel, and check out my other videos too. And for everyone else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye.